Hi, my name is Andrea Goyen, and I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at 10 Strands, and I'm making this video as part of the work we're doing in the California Environmental Literacy Initiative for the COE Fellowship, the County Office of Education Fellowship. So this video is really geared towards folks who are leading countywide high-impact environmental literacy and sustainability initiatives, or are trying to lead those types of initiatives. So I'm going to share my screen, and this particular video focuses on how to develop countywide programs for curriculum and instruction. So basically in the realm of teaching and learning. And if you want to access the slide deck, I'll just encourage you to pause the video here and type in this URL so that you can access it. And I'm going to also hide myself so that we can really see the screen and make sure that you can really get a good view. Okay, so I want to just start off by saying, again, this video is for COE staff who are really looking to build their capacity for developing and implementing countywide high-impact environmental literacy and sustainability initiatives. And we have been really focusing on this work across a whole system, but today this video is going to really center on the concepts around curriculum. So we're looking at how do we do this work in curriculum, how do we integrate environmental and climate literacy into curriculum, and how do we really support that effort from a county office of education. So just to set the context a little bit, when we're talking about, this is a little bit of that same kind of overview to whole systems. When you think about the TK through 12 education system, there's just a ton of different variables that you could possibly think about. And you might notice here in this slide deck that there are links. So when you open up the slide deck, you'll be able to link to some of these different documents. If you want to understand some of these variables better, I encourage you to look at that document that's linked there because it has a lot of definitions. So for example, I just pulled a bunch of the different variables that might be most relevant to teaching and learning. So I encourage you to pause here and just take a look at some of those. Probably things that jump out to you are like the content standards and some of the people, right? Like teachers and students, but maybe also things like curriculum frameworks, teaching materials, library services, assessment. All these things are what's most relevant to teaching and learning. Now, I'm guessing that it's not news to you, but it will probably be news to the people that you are working with, that there's actually some mandates and expectations for environmental literacy. So again, I encourage you to use some of the links that are on the slides, which you could access through the slide deck. I'll just open this one up so you can see it. This document shows you that there are a number of different mandates and expectations. The top was about facilities, but this section is all about curriculum and instruction. So you can get a sense that it's actually built into Ed Code to do some of this work, and that these environmental principles and concepts have been around for quite some time. And now they're just starting in the last kind of like 5-7 years to really get embedded into the frameworks. So now's the time to be doing this work. There's also some easy to find connections to environmental literacy and sustainability. So again, encourage you to look at some of those resources and just get a better sense of what's possible. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the slide deck and keep on going. So when you think about integration of environmental literacy, this image is really to say that that this generally happens across a continuum. So that might happen where people and teachers are saying, I can only do so much, and right now I want to just bring this in as a supplemental thing. And that's great. That will really enhance their curriculum. It'll give students really a chance to learn about environmental issues, explore them a little bit, and maybe even learn about solutions. Now, over here towards this end, you have teachers who are going for more of a medium and spicy approach, where they're actually like really building this into as an integrative practice or as more of like a transformative practice where they're working with their students to do knowledge to action solutionary PBL. So environmental literacy can take place anywhere along this continuum. There's no wrong approach, but it is going to lead to different outcomes. So when you're taking a more supplemental approach, you're probably just going to stay in this realm of like general awareness and building knowledge and understanding. When you get over to that spiciest end, you're really going to see people building their capacity. Now, even though a teacher might be doing the spiciest end of curriculum and instruction and environmental literacy integration, that doesn't mean that they do it all the time. Like I myself, when I was teaching the classroom, some units I only did some supplemental work. Other units, I really made it more of like a focus. And then as I built my teaching practice, I learned to do this integrative work across most of my curriculum. but it's not always a perfect fit for every course. And so sometimes you may just teach one unit that's really intense, and other times you might be able to do something only that's supplemental. Okay, so I'm going to give you a chance to now pause and really think about your own current context at your COE. So that last piece was all about like background around what are we talking about here in this system, right? That's why we went through all those slides. Now we're going to talk about your current context at your COE. So I encourage you to pause the video and take a look at some of these questions and really think about what types of curriculum and instructional programs already exist at your COE. How does your COE organize itself internally to support these programs and services that might be happening countywide? How does teaching and learning connect to other COE initiatives at your county office? And what are some of the roadblocks and challenges? Once you've had a chance to really pause and think about all that, then move into this next segment, which is really about looking at what are the possibilities for countywide environmental literacy programs. And we in CAELI kind of see these countywide programs as like an entry point for doing this work and doing the work of environmental and climate literacy in the curriculum. It's not the only entry point. In fact, we've got other videos for other entry points, but this one is really specific to countywide environmental literacy programs. So in general, when you think about a countywide program, here it is just to define it. The idea of a countywide program is that it's a professional development learning program that's optional and open to teachers from across the county. So the benefits of this type of program is that those who want to be there are there. It provides equitable access to high quality PD for those who are in districts where they're not prioritizing environmental literacy. It can also catalyze efforts and build leadership for environmental literacy across your county, really sprinkling seeds of it across districts that may not already be doing it and may be only happening in isolation with certain teachers. And it can also build relationships across the county for these like-minded teachers that often do feel isolated. And this can really help empower them to move from just doing this in their classroom to really doing this as teacher leaders. It can also allow for learning about successes and challenges in different contexts. So for example, if you do a countywide PD, you're going to be able to see how it gets implemented across all these different schools and districts. And so you will learn about what the validity of your approach and how it plays out in different contexts. And then it also is an opportunity to support connections to local environmental education providers like community-based partners that can provide field trips or guest speaking opportunities. So there's a lot of different things to consider when it comes to a countywide program. And that might be like, how do you want to structure it? So thinking about, do you have time and capacity to do like a full-on knowledge to action fellowship where these folks are coming to you maybe in the summer and they're getting like a really in-depth PD and maybe even some follow-up workshops and coaching. Or maybe you only have the capacity to do just like a workshop or a workshop series that might take place in like the afternoon or evening, or maybe on like a Saturday. But maybe you also have the opportunity to do some significant coaching programs, or maybe just leading a community of practice that meets together like once a month or once every 2 months. You can design these countywide programs to think about different audiences, like you could design them for a specific grade level or a specific subject area, or you can really think about doing it for multiple grade levels and multiple subject areas together. So I just clicked on the resource that was the tools and resources. So in our CAELI COE Innovation Hub, a couple of us got together and put together some resources for you to think about from different counties who have led countywide programs. So the San Mateo County examples look at the countywide Environmental Solutionary Teacher Fellowship, but also a couple other, and that has a lot of robust resources that you can really dive into to look at exactly how it was structured. If you're thinking about doing it, it also offers things like looking at sample budgets for doing this. So you can browse that. And then there's a few other examples from San Mateo County that are more like specific to certain grade levels, but still offered countywide. Santa Cruz has some really great resources as well, specifically looking at some of the work that was done with science and environmental literacy, but then also about doing this work with different partners, which I'll speak to a little bit later. And then other folks who have been participating in the COE Fellowship have also put in some resources as well that you can check out to see different countywide approaches. So as I mentioned, you could really do this work yourself and really design it yourself. It's also an opportunity to think about working with a partner or professional learning organization. So ways that you can think about making that decision is you might want to ask yourselves these questions. Does your county office of education have an established culture of providing PD and strong relationships with districts and sites to attend? If yes, then it might be a good chance to develop your own program. If not, it might make sense to work with an outside organization that could lend that validity and that credibility to the work that you're bringing forward. If you have a specific organizing framework or specific outcomes you want to achieve that you don't want to compromise, you may not want to work with a partner because you may say, I really want to do this our way. Or you might be able to work with just one partner and kind of design it however you want. You also might need to think about if you have the time and the expertise, or if you have the capacity, or if you have access to funding. So all those things are going to make a difference as to whether or not you'll be able to work with a partner. I also just put here a ton of different partners that are well vetted and other county offices have worked with. So those are ones that you could think about if you want to go into a partnership. So again, maybe pause there, think about those questions, and maybe explore some of those different partners. Okay, so another really important thing to consider when it comes to countywide professional development is outreach and recruitment. That is like the key to countywide programs. So when you think about all the different key constituents that you could do outreach and recruitment to, it's all over the education system, right? So this graphic is just showing like at the top, the red and the orange and the yellow, this top part is really saying like, here are some of the things that are happening in districts or some of the key people in districts. And then down here is more the site level folks. So you could target outreach to any of these different folks. And it really is going to matter like, who do you have strong relationships with? Oftentimes you'll be working with district ed services people, and that could be like somebody like an associate superintendent. It could also be like a director or coordinator in the district for curriculum, or it might be like a subject area teacher on special assignment or TOSA. At the site level, you might be working with principals, but maybe your contacts are more at that department level area. Either way, you got to target your outreach in order to drive that participation. And sometimes you have to get really creative. Like if your county office of education convenes some of these different people, you might want to present at that convening. Or you may want to just show up and kind of pass out specific flyers and have really targeted conversations with specific people. And you might have to develop some customized outreach contact lists and customized outreach email templates to really try to get towards that, driving that participation. So other key components of outreach and recruitment are just thinking about like how to design the program. So one thing to think about is that high quality professional learning that is transformative really does require quite a few hours. Now you might be looking at that number and saying, there's no way we could offer something that's that lengthy, and that's okay. But it is good to know that 30 to 100 hours is what's really needed. And that other piece says guided implementation and accountability is really important. So the more you can build those things into your program, the better. So that's maybe helping you think about program structure. Like, are you going to do it in the summer or the school year? Are you going to do it on a school day versus an evening or a weekend? And how many touch points can you build into this program with you guys, the facilitators, or the partner facilitators, or touch points with coaches? And then you might want to think about what are the incentives you can provide. So can you offer continuing education units or a stipend or a certification or a micro credential, or even, again, like I said, an instructional coach that can really be a support to them. So those are all the sorts of things to think about as you design these programs, and then think about what's going to be really important for outreach and recruitment. So now's a chance to really stop and pause and think about how to process all that you've seen. I would encourage you to pause the video and just ask yourself these questions. What resonated with you and is connected to your context? What seems possible within your sphere of influence? And what questions do you have that you want to explore further? And you might think, okay, I need to look at a bunch more resources. So there are a couple different resources that are linked here. Again, you can find everything embedded into this slide deck. So that's like the most important link there at the bottom. And don't hesitate to reach out to us if you would like some help with this. We're here to help.